Hello, Jonathan Bowman-Perks, and welcome back to my favourite time of the week, where we share ideas, tips, techniques, and experiences that I've had both as a leader myself with teams and with the teams that I coach and mentor. So this theme is about toxic teams and really inspiring teams. And my question for you is, as I go through part one, this session, where I'm going to be covering the moral quotient, purpose and meaning, the health quotient, and the IQ, the cognitive and the wisdom aspects of the inspiring leadership compass, that you think about your own team, whether it's toxic or whether it's really inspiring. So I firstly want to mention the book that we wrote with the experience of other leaders, Top Tips for Inspiring Leadership. And it has the compass on there, and I'm going to be talking about part one, the first four elements of what we call the lead indicators of performance, because we found from our research that while financial results are your lag indicators of performance, 360 Inspiring Leadership Psychometrics are providing for the teams that we work with their lead indicators of performance for the coming 12 months, both on their culture, how they treat others, how others work with them, and what people view them, particularly in the text that they get back on stop, start, and continue. So let's deal with the first four. And the one I want to talk about to begin with is at the top of the compass, and it is the moral component. And we talk about the needle pointing to true north, rather than moving gradually year on year, magnetic north, as it does in some teams. So my first question to you is, in your team, in your board, does it have a high sense of principles, ethics, morals? Is it clear on what it will do and what it will not do? Because as Oscar Wilde once says, a gentleman or a lady is someone who knows what they will do and also what they won't do. So tell me, if you were to score your board or your team on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is low moral integrity and 10 is very high moral integrity, what score would you give it? Are the leaders just interested in maximizing their earnout, making as much money as they can, regardless of the impact on the staff they're leading, which I do see in some organizations? Or are they actually doing the right things, not just doing things right, but they know what the right thing is and what they won't do? And my good friend, Professor Roger Steare, wrote his book, Ethic Ability, and the moral DNA psychometric that he has designed to work out the moral integrity of the organizations you're in. A great book, and he's a very good speaker who I recommend. So, firstly, what's your MQ like, your moral integrity, your moral quotient? The second of the first four that I want to talk about in your team is PQ, Purpose Quotient. So what is it that gives your team and your board meaning and purpose? And really, in many ways, it comprises the meaning and purpose, particularly of the CEO or of the chair, and the most strong characters in your team. And that, the combination of everybody's sense of meaning and purpose, is what makes up the team's meaning and purpose. But it's also linked to the organization's, its mission, its values. What is it about? What does success look like? What will be satisfaction criteria? So it's really important that you decide, is it healthy? And have you a clear sense of the why that you do what you do? And Simon Sinek's TED Talk, which is well known by many on why, is very important, because organizations that have a clear why are very powerful. And I remember reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, a very thin book, but a very good read, and quite grim, about him being he was a survivor in a concentration camp. And he said, man can cope with any what and how when they have a clear burning why. So in everything you do, whether it's meetings, why the team exists, be very clear on your why and your purpose. Next, the third of the four that I'm going to talk about this time is about HQ, Health Quotient, your mental health and your physical health, the training that you do, but also how you cope with things. And this is where Stoical philosophy is so very helpful for us, because fundamentally they, and also Lao Tzu in China 2,500 years ago, these Romans and Greeks and the Chinese had some very wise words. And essentially what they said, you can't affect events often. They're beyond your control, but you can control your thoughts about the events and the actions that you take and the behaviors you exhibit and the decisions you make. So managing to control your mental health and your physical health, both of yourself and of your team members, will define what's you like in your team. So what score would you give yourself for your board or your team on its mental and physical health quotient? Is it a very healthy place where people are encouraged to keep fit, to take their holidays, to not work the weekends and late into the night? Or is it just grind, constant grind, and people are diminished, depleted, lacking in energy and demoralized? So if you give it a score of 1 to 10, where 1 is very low and 10 is very high, what would the score be for your team? And the fourth area I want to talk about today is IQ. And it's not just about how clever you are, it's about your wisdom and judgment in the way we measure this psychometric. And it's how good are you at running meetings and making decisions and actions. We talk about Dan's ad: decision, action, next step, who's accountable, and the delivery deadline. What's your Dan's ad? If you have, as some of my teams say when I work with them to help them run better meetings, no Dan's ad, no meeting. If we have no purpose to the meeting, again, no meeting. And if people invite you to them and they haven't got a clear purpose to the meeting and there's going to be no decisions made, don't go to the meeting. Say, no, I'm not coming. And don't chicken out and send your subordinate instead, because it's going to be a dire meeting for them. So the quality of the meetings that you run, how well they're run, who is in your wisdom group? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? Do you have friends? Do you have colleagues that you can talk to? My wife Lee, she's often my best advisor when I'm stuck on something. What should I do about this? And she gives me wise advice, or she even asks me great questions. So think about IQ, which is your wisdom and your decision making. So this is the first part. The second I'll do later. But how would you rate your team in these 4 components of what makes either a toxic team or a healthy team? And if you want further tips, have a read, Top Tips for Inspiring Leaders, about how you are and how your team is. And drop me some thoughts, some ideas. If you like what I'm talking about, give me a like, but also put down your top tip about what makes a healthy team, or indeed if you've been in a toxic team, tell me what it was about that team that made it so toxic. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking with you.